Kelso, Washington, February 2nd, 2020. 38-year-old Stephen Pete attends to his Sunday chores like yard work and cooking and tinkering with several projects in his basement. All the same things that any person might do on a weekend. But for Stephen, he has to do all this far more carefully than the average person because for him, doing household chores is more than just a series of tasks. It's actually dangerous.
I was born with a rare genetic condition called congenital analgesia. At the time, that was the name given to it. Now it's called congenital insensitivity to pain. So I can't feel any pain at all.
A life free of pain sounds like something many of us would pay dearly for. But for people like Stephen, death or severe injury lurks around every corner.
My parents first noticed something was different when I was teething and I chewed off half my tongue. That definitely alarmed them to something serious going on, so they took me to my pediatrician, who did a couple of tests and determined that more than likely I didn't feel pain. They ran needles up and down my spine, poked my feet a couple of places. I still didn't elicit a negative response, a painful response.
Stephen's gruesome injury provides a stark reminder that while most people probably don't think of pain as a sense, it may actually be the most important sense of all.
Congenital analgesia is an inherited form of insensitivity to pain. Congenital means it runs in the family, and analgesia means that you don't feel pain. You have no feeling of pain whatsoever. There's some form of mutation in a gene that's essential for pain perception.
When people first hear that I don't feel pain, they think it is the greatest thing in the whole world. They're like, wow, you got a superpower. But my childhood was spending good chunks of time in the hospital. I stayed anywhere between like 4 months to maybe a year and a half, which isn't normal.
It's an extremely problematic condition. Pain protects us from self-harm, and it's often the first sign of disease. So people who are pain-free often die very young.
It's actually rather amazing that he made it through life as far as he has. I mean, the classic example we always hear about is learning not to touch things that are hot. Pain alerts us when we're doing something in the external world that doesn't make sense and we should stop.
The one thing that I really have to keep an eye on is probably whenever I'm engaged in like a physical activity that's a little bit strenuous, like doing the yard work. It's stuff like that where I can injure myself and not immediately realize it that can cause serious repercussions down the road.
When we think about senses, we always think about the classic 5 senses: sight, touch, smell, taste, and hearing. One thing that's really interesting, though, is we basically have another sense, which is our pain, our sense of pain. We often just reject that as, well, that's just touch. But that negates or doesn't think about the internal pains we often feel, whether it's headaches or stomach aches or sore muscles, which really isn't quite touch.
Since Stephen doesn't feel pain, it begs the question, what does he feel instead?
It's difficult for me to try to explain. But even though I don't feel physical pain, what I can feel is heat, cold, touch, just like every other person. What I do feel is probably a byproduct of pain is like these impulses, almost like a nerve firing. Since 2012, I've had the opportunity of being able to participate in a couple studies with different universities. I spent a good portion of my childhood in the hospital, and during those stays, it was usually with people who felt pain, and seeing people, especially that young, who are going through such painful experiences, that's really what prompted me to sign up for a lot of these studies when I was approached. And the overall goal in a lot of these studies is to try to create a non-narcotic painkiller, because the opioid crisis that our country is facing is one that other nations are facing as well.